Hey everybody, I'm Zach.
And I'm Jesse, and you are our wonderful, awesome, just fantastic Patreon patrons.
We're back at the desk.
Back at the desk. Oh, it is good to be back at the desk.
You don't realize what you got until it's gone. You know what I mean? Like we were so on the road and busy for the past few weeks that it's nice to finally have a teleprompter again and have our news stories written out. And yeah, it was crazy.
Teleprompter is so clutch.
And again, you guys were there for us. We couldn't have done these amazing things. We got to meet so many amazing people and bring them to you on our road trip. I think we're up to episode 7, episode 8 coming out later this week. So I mean, you've seen like all the cool stuff we got to do because of you. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
All right, first story here is a continuation of our story that we did earlier in the news where Sentry Mode. So for those of you who don't know, in a Tesla now, there's a new feature called Sentry Mode.
They know. They're our patrons.
Do they? Okay. They know. There's cameras all around the car. It captures things, and it captures things like this story.
A Metro Detroit driver doesn't see any humor in this teenage prank. He says this egging has turned into a costly problem. Jermont Terry is live in Ann Arbor tonight, and Jermont, the teens responsible may not realize his Tesla was actually recording the whole incident.
Kimberly, I don't think many people realize that the cars pulling up to these charging stations have those built-in cameras made in the cars. Now, one guy that drives a Tesla, he's wondering if the vandals targeted his car because of the kind of car he drives.
You can still find a few eggshells littering the ground, remnants of Darren Lee's night out charging his Tesla in Ann Arbor.
I was actually in the car when it happened.
Here's a look at what happened. 4 guys in this Cadillac SUV pull up, stop, and start impaling Darren's Tesla with eggs.
I think they were going to cover my car with like all 5 dozen eggs. And they saw me and, they took off real quick.
But look closer at the face of the guy the moment they realize Darren's in the car while it's charging.
There's no way they knew. I mean, the video, as you can see, is pretty clear.
Yet, while driving off, they still tossed more eggs, smirking the entire time. But Darren isn't laughing.
At first, I didn't think it did any damage.
After washing his car, he noticed fine scratches to the paint on the front grille.
And it's like $800.
These clear images came directly from Darren's car.
That's a camera, these are cameras, and actually these will record the back of the car.
But it's what the front camera captured that leaves Darren looking to find these youngsters. When he contacted police, Darren says he learned he may not have been the only Tesla greeted by eggs at this charging station.
Just terrible that this happens just for, driving a specific car, if that is what it is.
Now Darren uses the car to help his disabled roommate get around. He hopes someone can ID what looks like teenagers because if this was a prank, it's a costly one.
I don't know if you guys knew, but yeah, eggs can really mess up a paint job.
Now, these Tesla's charging stations, they're in the Meijer parking lot here in Ann Arbor. Now, when Darren went inside to talk to the store workers, he was told that those teenagers on that night, they went inside and purchased 5 cartons of eggs only. They are reviewing that surveillance video and hoping to turn it over to police. Reporting live in Ann Arbor tonight, Jermont Terry, Local 4.
All right, Jermont.
Yeah, so poor Darren. First of all, he was in the car. I mean, he didn't even need a Sentry Mode. He was there in his own car.
But it's good for proof, for evidence.
Yes. Although there was, there's no way to see the license plate when they pull up like that. They must know that or something. Like all they know is that it was, what kind of car it was.
Yeah.
And that look on the kid's face when you're just like, oh
no. Yeah, and they're going to catch them because they were at the Meijers buying 5 dozen eggs.
Yeah, please catch those kids.
I mean, I bought 5 dozen eggs the other day, but
You did?
Well, it's for deviled eggs.
Oh.
For a party. It's for a party.
Okay. I was a little worried what you're going to do with them.
But anyway, a bunch of hooligans buying 5 dozen. Like, why do you even sell that? I mean, I know you have to, but it just...
I'm making deviled eggs for a party. You were doing it.
I know. But I'm just saying,
that's what's so awesome about Sentry Mode. Right. We're getting to see all this awesome footage of crazy things that are happening with Teslas.
But we need more cameras turned on. Because when they drove off,
more
if
angles,
the side camera were turned on, you'd be able to get the license plate. It'd be a bing, bang, boom.
Well, no, you do get side camera on Sentry Mode.
You get side camera looking back.
Oh, but
you don't get side camera looking forward.
Right.
So we need, you need 360-degree protection.
And I really do think I love your idea of it alerting your app and then turning on the camera so you can see what's going on in your car at that moment.
And that could be a mode. If that wasn't your thing, you could turn that off.
Also,
extra alert mode, or
and charge for it. Like Tesla, sell that as a premium feature for people who want it, because not everyone needs it. But if people want to pay for it, it's a good revenue stream.
Right. Or if you get a certain tier of Tesla, you'd get it standard.
Sure.
Because the premium interior comes with
Sure.
Well, I mean, I guess everything has the premium interior these days, but there's the connectivity package.
Right.
So it would come with a connectivity package or whatever. But yeah, I mean, people would be willing to spend for this level of security.
Yeah.
I've never had to put security in my car. I don't live in a place where that's really that necessary.
Yeah, but sometimes you drive places where you want it.
Right, but I mean, like, just installing a car alarm, just getting OnStar. I mean, Tesla has all that. You can do in-car roadside assistance from the Tesla.
Also, someday in the near future, predictive Tesla Sentry mode. It'll see the guys driving up, know that they bought 5 dozen eggs, and be like, I'm going to pre-record them approaching your car.
Minority Report.
Yeah, there we go.
So then there's this other video of Tesla. This time the camera's looking at the Tesla.
Yeah, let's just show it to you. So it's been talked about endlessly on social media.
Right.
Tesla's catching on fire. First of all cars catch on fire.
Right.
I mean, ICE cars catch on fire every day by the thousands. We don't talk about it.
Right.
So it could be that this Tesla caught on fire for no reason, or it could be that this Tesla hit something while it was driving and parked there and started smoldering. Could be that someone actually rigged this to do something. I mean, we have no idea.
But regardless, so, okay, this is in China. This is a Gen 1 Tesla.
Yep.
So, I mean, this was built back in,
2012,
2012. So it is not there's not a lot similar to this and a current Model S.
Right.
There have been a lot of design changes that went into the cars. There have been a lot of battery design changes. There's been a lot of changes in general. And secondly, the really suspicious thing to me is that the whole thing catches on fire. We've never seen a Model S catch on fire like this.
Right.
When any Tesla catches on fire,
one cell.
It's one cell at a time. It burns through the pack.
Right,
The
it's a
whole
domino
pack
effect.
doesn't explode.
Right.
People have minutes to get out of the car before the
Right.
car is in flames.
Right.
Usually, people are able to like wave them down in traffic and be like, "Hey, your car's on fire," and then they get out of the car
Right.
and they watch it burn. This thing just went up in flames, which makes me extra suspicious. And people are like, "Oh, Jesse, you're a conspiracy theorist. Why aren't you wearing a tinfoil hat, you crazy person?" But we have one
shot.
there's kind of two angles of it. We don't see anything before.
No.
We don't know whose car this is.
Right.
And if you were, say, an oil lobbying industry, whatever, big oil, and you were like, how can we stick it to these Tesla guys?
But now-
you'd get a cheap Tesla,
Sure.
right? So a Gen 1 Tesla,
And you rig it.
and you'd rig it to blow
But not
up.
only that, I mean, it could be that some, ex-girlfriend, ex-boyfriend, there's a million possibilities for what
Right.
happened here. We just don't know.
We don't know anything.
And that's why we're not reporting it on the major news, because
As soon as you show it, it sensationalizes
Yeah.
it, and it's just like, oh my gosh, Teslas can catch on fire!
Because,
Wow!
again, this is one of those points when you talk to someone at the cooler, this is what they're going
This
to
is
talk about.
all they bring-
They're
oh, you
not
see
going to
that
talk
catch
about,
on fire?
They're not going to talk about the new chip, because that went over their
No,
head.
right.
They're not going to talk about anything but, did you see Tesla's catch on fire?
fire! Your car's gonna catch on fire!
I feel like if you watch this video and you feel that way, you should also be forced to watch the number of cars that caught on fire that day that are ICE cars.
Right.
And so that you can put it in perspective.
Right, because you wouldn't even notice it. You wouldn't be like, oh. You'd be like, oh my, there's so many cars. Can I just go home now? And you'd be like, no, you have to watch all these cars catch on fire. And they'd be like, I just want to go home, man. And listen, watch. You're going to see a Tesla in there somewhere. There's hundreds of these. I'm so tired. Watch them. You wouldn't be able to even pick it out.
So more Tesla pickup truck renderings.
Yeah.
I don't even think this is a story, but people get so...
People
Can
love
I ask a
to-
question?
yeah.
Why do people love to imagine things like this, and they don't like to imagine things like the robotaxi or the world with clean electricity?
Because they can see this.
Yeah.
And they can be like, I like the look of that.
Yeah.
And they can be like, oh, I like it. But I don't like it. I like it. I don't like it. That's all they want to do.
But here's the thing. It makes no difference what it looks like.
Right, because
It's
that's not
what Tesla's going to make.
You're not going to get that. You're not going to get this Model X front, Model S back, Model 3
And
side
do you
kind
think
of thing.
Elon's going to see this one day on a Twitter feed and be like, Franz, make this.
Franz, what the hell were you doing? Look at this. It's nice that people are, trying to imagine what the pickup truck could look like.
But do you also realize, who cares? A pickup
Right.
truck is a bed to put stuff in and a cab to drive in. Now, Tesla's probably going to eliminate the cab part, as we talked about last week. Because
they might.
They could.
They could.
But like, why is so everyone so excited about what it looks like? Its job is to just drive you with a bed.
Because the pickup truck has become more of a cultural thing than
Yeah,
I think
it's
it's ever been a utilitarian thing. I think, back in the days of like the Waltons and stuff, you'd have a pickup truck and the bed would be made out of wood.
Yeah.
And there'd be side panels out of wood.
I grew up in pickup trucks. I mean, my dad had a Ford, my dad had a Chevy. We drove around. It was the family car.
Right.
And on the weekdays, it was the construction vehicle. And on weekends, it was the family car.
And there are plenty of people who still use them like that. But so many people have lobbed onto this idea of like, I'm going to drive a big truck. I'm going to be manly. Look at me. Look at me.
I counted in Europe.
Yeah.
9 pickup trucks. 5 of them were in London.
Yeah.
I was in 9 countries. I counted 9 pickup trucks in 3 weeks.
Right. Exactly. It just shows that you don't need them. I will say when we were in London, I counted like 100 Land Rovers.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and that's more of a status symbol as well.
Totally.
It's not like you're going to be like, oh, I just can't wait to go drive around London in my giant car. But something about it being British and something about the Ford F-150 being
Is it
American.
British?
I know, but
Is it British,
yeah.
though?
And is the Ford F-150 American? It's another question. But what I'm saying is, it's such a cultural thing to be like, I got my truck and I got my, I don't know, other things that I apply to being manly. And you just, so a lot of people care about what the truck looks like. Right. And, I worry if Tesla comes out with a flatbed autonomous truck, if people are going to be like, oh, I wanted a truck. Like, if that's going to be a problem, and if people are going to be like, oh, it's stupid.
I think the first truck that Tesla's going to come up with is going to be that, and then they will come up with a regular old pickup, because that's what Elon said. The first one is for him.
Right. And, I mean, I think, part of me would love it if it was just a bed, because,
I would love that.
and if it was on the Tesla network.
Yep.
Because now I don't
That's
have to
all you
rely
need.
on my friend Steve to drive my couch around.
Exactly.
And Steve's going to like it even better because now he doesn't. But then he'll be like, why do I have this pickup truck?
Right.
And I think
That
could be it.
That's
It's
it.
just
Why
going
do I
to
have
kill pickup trucks
Yes.
because no longer do you
Right.
need it.
because the bed won't be so sexy
Right.
anymore. It's like, well, I can get a bed anytime I want.
Right. And it could just be built better.
Yeah.
Because you need to buy it. Imagine if it was just like, if it,
It could have ramps built in.
Right, it could have
with
all
conveyor
sorts
belt
of,
ramps
it
and
could
all
have
sorts
all
of cool
sorts
stuff.
of things, and it could just be indestructible. They all in all the commercials are like, look, you can drop a toolbox from up here and it won't dent the bed, and it's like,
When do you do that?
when do you do that? But at the same time, you could make this Tesla pickup bed be bulletproof,
beefy, sure.
and
Yeah.
just drop a ton of bricks in it like they do in all the commercials or whatever.
Yeah.
And then you could just be like, oh, hey, instead of getting a truck, why don't you get a sporty sports car? Why don't you get a Model 3?
Yeah, with better gas mileage.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about this. So NPR just released the results of a new NPR Ipsos poll on Earth Day, which shows that more than 80% of parents and 86% of teachers in the United States believe that climate change should be taught in schools.
Mm-hmm.
More than half of the teachers surveyed say they don't cover climate change or talk about it. Let me just say that again. More than half don't cover climate change or talk about it in school. And less than half of parents, only 45% surveyed, said they ever even discuss climate change with their own children.
If you're watching right now and you haven't discussed climate change with your own children, if you have children, please do.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm assuming the people watching that you've already done this.
I mean, maybe
I know that-
Is
I
it
know that
because it's
so many-
depressing? Is it like talking about death?
I think that there's a lot of guilt associated with it. It's like, oh, here's your crappy world that I didn't. It's like if you borrowed your friend's car and then you like smashed it, and then we're like, here you go, here are the keys.
I think also parents know that when you teach your children something, they're going to then follow up on it. And so every day they're going to go,
Why?
Why do we not have solar on our roof
Why?
if it's such a good
Right.
Exactly. And so I think as a parent that you're going to get hit with that, which you should be hit with because you're the parent. Your job is to raise the child as well as you can and prepare them for life on this planet. And if you're not helping the life on this planet to support them, then you haven't done your job.
Right.
So among teachers surveyed, 65% said climate change is outside their subject area.
Okay. So, I mean, maybe if you're a PE teacher or you're a math teacher or you're like a music teacher?
I think you can involve climate change in all those, but whatever.
You
Okay.
could, yeah.
The poll asked teachers to rank the importance of climate change and found, quote, it fell to near the bottom of a list of priorities for expanding the curriculum behind science and math, basic literacy, and financial education. Other obstacles cited by teachers is not teaching climate science were a lack of materials, a lack of knowledge about the subject, and 4% of teachers said that their schools didn't allow it to be taught. Now, some teachers have noted the subject could be divisive and there can be difficulty in dealing with students whose parents are deniers of climate change. And I think that even though only 4% of teachers said their school wouldn't allow it, I think this is the elephant in the room.
Mm-hmm.
I think that climate deniers are bullies. Most of them don't go quietly. Like, most of them don't just go, well, I don't believe in that, but whatever you think. They get loud and obnoxious. And I think we all know that. So when you go to a school committee meeting, or if you're doing, some curriculum night,
Right.
you know that the parents who are like, wait, you're teaching what?
Right.
You're teaching that the earth is getting warm? And I think that most of people go, oh, you know what? We don't want to deal with that. So let's just not teach it.
Right. And that's exactly how bullying works.
Yep.
Schools should know how to deal with bullying.
Yeah.
And they don't.
No.
This gets to just a larger conversation about education.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about climate change here because we're very climate change oriented YouTube channel, if you haven't noticed. But I have a huge bone to pick with just education, our educational system in general. There's so many things that weren't taught to me as a kid that really should have been, like how to do your taxes, what to do if you get pulled over, what to do if you get arrested, how the legal system works,
First aid,
what your rights are as a human, what your rights are as a citizen, what the laws are in your neck of the woods. I mean, there are a lot of them, and it doesn't have to be boring. It doesn't have to be, but yeah, first aid. Hello.
Right.
Just think of how many more people would live if we taught first aid from an earlier age.
Yeah, I mean,
we don't even teach it. It's not like there's one day where they're just like, it's time for you to learn first aid. It's only if you're like a camp counselor,
Right.
or some person who needs to be in charge of safety that first aid.
We don't teach how to swim. We don't teach how to use a defibrillator, an AED, even though they're in almost every public building now.
Right.
Like, there's so many things that we should teach that we don't. And these, I think, there's this video from Boy in a Band. This came out 3 years ago or so.
4 years ago.
But it actually just started to catch virally, I think, because now is about the time where people are like, I've had enough. I urge you to watch this 4-minute video where all the points that he points out, I think you're going to relate to.
Right.
And it's a systemic change we need to make in our educational system. It's not like a little tweak here and there, like, oh, we'll add this book to this curriculum.
Right. It's not like, we should be teaching about a different explorer.
Yeah, I mean, we're still teaching. Look at the book lists at most schools, okay? And the book list has barely changed, and yet life as you know it is changing. And
Right.
so,
I mean, we hardly have any education about the internet.
yeah, I know.
I mean, just for a second, just to blow your mind a little bit, because it blew my mind the other day. Just think for a second. Think about every textbook you've ever read, every history textbook. Every single one of those people did what they did without the internet. Mm-hmm. So, of course, Caesar and Augustus and, Charlemagne and Albert Einstein and Newton, everyone Churchill and FDR and Stalin and everyone did everything that they did without the internet. They didn't have access to the internet. We are living in an age where we do have access to the internet, and that it's the most fundamental change that has probably ever occurred.
Do you know why we don't, I bet? Because most educators are not comfortable with the internet.
No, they're like, whoa, this is some new age fangled stuff. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, the internet was just like this, get away from it. It's dangerous. It's so scary. Don't post any pictures on the internet. Don't post any pictures of yourself or your children or your dogs or your cats. Like, it was just like fear.
Yeah.
the internet's going to kill you.
That's how we handle all new technology.
And it, there were, I'm not saying that there weren't cases where, predators were, finding kids online, but for the most part, the internet is this huge, wide,
as you
diverse
said, they
thing.
taught you to be fearful of it, but they didn't teach you how to use it.
Right. And the people who learned how to use the internet early, the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world,
Right.
profited so much because everyone else was taught to stay off the internet.
Yep.
And he was like, I'm going to make it so that everyone's going to connect to each other on the internet. And I don't like the guy, but look what he's done.
Right.
A huge billion-dollar company just from a bunch of lines of code.
We don't teach kids how to share ideas across that platform. So we might, at the most, teach them how to talk to each other at a table. But we don't say to them, hey, why don't you work with some kids in India and solve this problem this afternoon? Boom, mind-blowing. That would be awesome.
When I was a kid, I remember we had pen pals. I had a pen pal in, France, I want to say. Or maybe it was just in my school. But, again, no concept of what I learned. But, we could have pen pals anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
And just be like, hi, how are you today? What is your life like?
Right.
And my life is much different than your life.
And we can video Skype with them.
Exactly. It doesn't have to be an email.
Right.
Yes, you're right. It could be like, hi, this is me. I'm in
show
Paris
me your
right
day.
now.
Exactly.
Hi, I'm in New Delhi.
Right.
Hi, I'm in, New Zealand. Check it out.
Exactly.
Here's a kangaroo.
Exactly.
I know that's Australia, but I'm sorry. But what I'm saying is, it's like,
I know.
there's so and resources for children and the internet. Kids get the internet. They're just like bang, bang, bang. Yeah, internet, got it. Kids are swiping books because they're just so used to screens. Because parents are just like, all right, Jimmy, here you go. Shut up for half an hour while I go do something. If there was just curriculum on the phone, if they could just buy an iPad that had the curriculum on it, when I was a kid, there was the smart pads or whatever, the smart book thing, and
that ties really well into this next story because we got to move on. So, you remember this guy, Jim Cramer?
Oh yeah.
Here's what he said.
Is Tesla a short's worst nightmare, and B, does it have the most
Here's
loyal
the problem with Tesla. Here's the problem with Tesla. My brother-in-law has a Tesla, and he goes to every Tesla rally, okay? I mean, he shows off his car. People who show off cars buy the stock, and they don't care about the balance sheet. They don't care about a cash raise.
Missed on earnings, huge. Missed on revenue, I believe. No
Why do you bore me?
profitability
Why do you
in
bore me?
second quarter.
Why do you bore me? Actually, no, we have a great piece with Gabe Hoffman. He's a short seller. He admits that he's short every time. Points out the inconsistencies. But you see, when you start a conference call with, we're going to have 1 million robo-taxis in 2020, I mean, what are you going to do? Are you going to deal with the reality? I mean, this is a guy, he's a big think guy, but this is a guy who immediately, he tries to figure out how to throw everybody off their game. So when he says that, well, I feel like Warren Buffett, they throw stones at my house, whatever. But he starts with such an absurdity that we look like Lilliputians when we try to pin him down on things like cash flow and his guidance. Right. It's like, I always remember when he sat across the table from me and called me a simulation when I questioned whether in 2018 all of America would be receiving its power from a grid in the northwest.
It was
of
over a
Colorado.
50%
Northwest,
chance that you're
yeah,
simulating.
because he said in 2018 all of our electricity will be generated by a power plant in northern Colorado, and I questioned that. Now, did he deal with me on the facts? No, he just said that I was a simulation, 50% chance. That's him. Okay? He deflects. I've never seen anything like it. He's the master deflector. He is P.T. Barnum.
I love listening to him. You know why? Because he doesn't pull any punches. He doesn't try and pretend to be something he's not. He doesn't get it.
Right.
I mean, Elon had this little Twitter fight with him recently where Elon again said Cramer is a simulation. He's not real. Cramer came back with this witty retort. How could I be a simulation?
Oh,
wow.
How could... Well,
that stopped him. But
I love how he threw his brother-in-law under the bus. He's like, yeah, my brother-in-law is a Tesla, and he's crazy. He goes all these things where they all show off their cars, and of course they all buy the stock. And it's like, yeah, I'm familiar with those people. We all get it, Jim.
Right.
Maybe if you had a Tesla, Jim, you'd understand why your brother was so excited about his car.
He makes it sound absurd that his brother-in-law would buy stock in the company. his brother-in-law obviously is a well-to-do person if he's driving a Tesla.
Right.
It's pretty much by definition
Right.
that you're doing okay.
Right.
So if all these Tesla guys who are doing okay are buying the stock, it means that they probably know what they're talking about. It's just that Jim doesn't want to get into that car. He doesn't want to own one of those cars. Here he is almost every day on CNBC bashing the company. You'd think at least he'd want to learn what the heck the company is about.
At least he should be able to convince his own brother-in-law
Yeah.
to sell his stock and to short the
Right.
company. Because, I mean, like, I don't have, like, all the time in the world with Jim Cramer, and I'm sure his brother-in-law doesn't have all the time in the world with him either, but I'm sure, you know, they sit down together at Thanksgiving or Christmas dinner or whatever, and this has to be a point of contention, I'm assuming, every year, and everyone's sitting down at the table like, I'm ready for a fireworks display, because you have Jim Cramer over here, one of the biggest, like, you know, short people on Tesla, and his brother-in-law who goes to Tesla events. And this is like topical, right? Because it's just been electric drive week. So his brother probably just went to an event and told him all about it.
Right. No, but this Lilliputian, I mean, he brings up that he's a Lilliputian compared to Elon. Yes, you are, Jim.
Right.
You're throwing little twigs at Elon because you don't get it.
What about this quarter? What about this quarter? What about this quarter? How about the FCC? Huh? FCC is going to get you.
Do you remember
Yeah.
that up until today, he was basically saying that this judge is going to just basically put Elon away.
Right. And
Where did that go,
I
Jim?
know. Didn't happen.
But he talks about robotaxi as if it's this crazy idea like landing rockets.
Right. And where has that gotten? I mean, if you consistently have been against Elon Musk's ideas, if you're like, yeah, landing rockets is crazy.
Wait a minute, you're telling me he's going to build an electric car in the
Electric
United
car?
States
Oh,
that's going to sell well?
You're going to build an electric car? Are you crazy?
Wait, you're telling me he's going to build an affordable electric car
Right.
that people are going to want around the world?
That's so crazy. You can't do that. I mean, it's all happened. He has such a track record. He's always late.
Yep.
Elon's basically always late. I'll give him that.
Sure.
You know,
But
sure.
that wasn't his argument.
But just imagine for a minute if Elon was never late. Could you just picture the world where that were true? I mean, obviously, it would be a fantastic world, but also it would be a world where like 90% of the arguments that
there'd be no
Fudsters.
argument. If he was actually on time, I'm sorry, there'd be no FUD left.
You don't
It's
think
the
so?
only thing they have
I think
is the time.
No, obviously there would have to
No.
be FUD. The oil industry has to fight this.
Okay, yeah,
they have to fight for their profits. It's just like, and so they would come up with other things.
Yeah.
They would dig deeper.
All right, let's move on.
Before we get into this next little segment, I understand that some of you will not agree with some of the things in this video. I don't agree with everything in this video. I don't agree with all of AOC's policies. And I know as soon as I said AOC, people, I hear the typing. I hear you typing. Just chill out for a second.
Right.
Just listen.
We've said this before, and we'll
You
say
don't
it
have
again.
to
Jesse
agree.
and I are not Democrats. We're not Republicans. We are just independent thinkers. So we're not trying to say like, oh, only certain people should be talking here. We're all should be talking about
Yeah.
the solution. AOC just happens to me to be very inspirational because she's facing the future head on.
Right.
Now, do I think that every single idea she has is going to work or be correct? Probably not. But I like that she's facing the problem and trying to come up with a solution.
Because honestly, the climate change is not discussed enough in our American politics system.
Right. I mean, to have a discussion, you don't have to agree with everything the other person says.
Right.
You just have to start talking
So
together
this is
in
just
an open way.
one
Exactly.
thing. And hey, you know, if there were a Republican candidate that wanted to put out something talking about climate change,
Yeah.
I would want to listen to it too. It's
Yeah.
not. It just happens to be AOC. I know that she's very controversial. I just think it's
And it's
important to listen
controversial
to.
by nature. She's
Right.
talking about something we don't want to deal with. We don't want
Right.
to deal with the fact that Miami could be lost to the ocean, okay? So no one wants to think about it.
Right.
And the person who brings that up is the messenger, and the messenger is never the person that gets much treated well.
Right.
But let's just watch this and start the discussion.
The bullet train from New York to DC. It always brings me back to when I first started making this commute. In 2019, I was a freshman in the most diverse Congress in history. Up to that point, it was a critical time. I'll never forget the children in our community. They were so inspired to see this new class of politicians who reflected them navigating the halls of power. It's often said, you can't be what you can't see. And for the first time, they saw themselves. I think there was something similar with the Green New Deal. We knew that we needed to save the planet and that we had all the technology to do it, but people were scared. They said it was too big, too fast, not practical. I think that's because they just couldn't picture it yet. Anyways, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start with how we got here. 1977, New York. A senior scientist named James Black made a presentation about how burning fossil fuels could eventually lead to global temperatures rising 4 or 5 degrees Fahrenheit. Within 2 years, one of the world's biggest supertankers was outfitted with a state-of-the-art lab to measure CO2 in the ocean, gathering more data about global warming. Guess who was doing all of this research? ExxonMobil, the oil and gas company. Oh yeah, Exxon knew this whole time, as did our politicians. 10 years later, James Hansen, NASA's top climate scientist, told Congress he was 99% certain that global warming was happening and caused by humans. That was 1988, the year before I was even born. So did Exxon listen to the science, including their own? Did they change business models, invest in renewables? No, the opposite. They knew and they doubled down. They and others spent millions setting up a network of lobby groups and think tanks to create doubt and denial about climate change. It was an effort designed to attack and dispute the very kind of science they themselves had been doing. And it worked. Politicians went to bat for fossil fuels, and these massive corporations kept digging and mining, drilling and fracking like there was no tomorrow. America became the biggest producer and consumer of oil in the world. Fossil fuel companies made hundreds of billions, while the public paid the lion's share to clean up their disasters. We lost a generation of time we'll never get back. Entire species will never get back. Natural wonders gone forever. And in 2017, Hurricane Maria destroyed the place where my family was from, Puerto Rico. It was like a climate bomb. It took as many American lives as 9/11. And in the next year, when I was elected to Congress, the world's leading climate scientists declared another emergency. They told us that we had 12 years left to cut our emissions in half, or hundreds of millions of people would be more likely to face food and water shortages, poverty, and death. 12 years to change everything. How we got around, how we fed ourselves, how we made our stuff, how we lived and worked, everything. The only way to do it was to transform our economy, which we already knew was broken, since the vast majority of wealth was going to just a small handful of people, and most folks were falling further and further behind. It was a true turning point. Lots of people gave up. They said we were doomed. But some of us remembered that as a nation, we'd been in peril before. The Great Depression, World War II. We knew from our history how to pull together to overcome impossible odds. And at the very least, we owed it to our children to try. The wave began when Democrats took back the House in 2018, and then the Senate and the White House in 2020, and launched the decade of the Green New Deal, a flurry of legislation that kicked off our social and ecological transformation to save the planet. It was the kind of swing-for-the-fence ambition we needed. Finally, we were entertaining solutions on the scale of the crises we faced without leaving anyone behind. That included Medicare for All, the most popular social program in American history. We also introduced the Federal Jobs Guarantee, a public option including dignified living wages for work. Funnily enough, the biggest problem in those early years was a labor shortage. We were building a national smart grid, retrofitting every building in America, putting trains like this one all across the country. We needed more workers. That group of kids from my neighborhood were right in the middle of it all, especially this one girl, Ileana. Her first job out of college was with AmeriCorps Climate, restoring wetlands and bayous in coastal Louisiana. Most of her friends were in her union, including some oil workers in transition. They took apart old pipelines and got to work planting mangroves with the same salary and benefits. Of course, when it came to healing the land, we had huge gaps in our knowledge. Luckily, Indigenous communities offered generational expertise to help guide the way. Ileana got restless, tried her hand as a solar plant engineer for a while, but eventually made her career in raising the next generation as part of the Universal Child Care Initiative. As it turns out, caring for others is valuable, low-carbon work, and we started paying real money to folks like teachers, domestic workers, and home health aides. Those were years of massive change, and not all of it was good. When Hurricane Sheldon hit southern Florida, parts of Miami went underwater for the last time. But as we battled the floods, fires, and droughts, we knew how lucky we were to have started acting when we did. And we didn't just change the infrastructure, we changed how we did things. We became a society that was not only modern and wealthy, but dignified and humane too. By committing to universal rights like healthcare and meaningful work for all, we stopped being so scared of the future. We stopped being scared of each other, and we found our shared purpose. Ileana heard the call too, and in 2028, she ran for office in the first cycle of publicly funded election campaigns. And now she occupies the seat that I once held. I couldn't be more proud of her, a true child of the Green New Deal. When I think back to my first term in Congress, riding that old school Amtrak in 2019, all of this was still ahead of us. And the first big step was just closing our eyes and imagining it. We can be whatever we have the courage to see.
Yeah, so what I liked was she had an interesting way of telling the story.
It's from a future perspective where they did the right thing.
And it's not all about technical solutions. It's about people solutions. It's about picturing the solution and you being a part of the solution and how you fit into that puzzle.
Right.
And I like that because there's a lot of kids today who are like, I don't know what you're talking. When you talk about trying to solve this problem, how do I fit into that? And this showed a typical, could be a typical youngster and the kind of jobs that she goes through and how she fits in. I thought it was pretty cool that it leads to her running for office.
Yeah. I mean, and
because when do you learn that in school? Like going back to the school thing,
right?
I don't remember ever being told, hey, and you know another possible job for you is a congressperson.
Right.
I heard people talk about you could be president someday.
Right.
But no
there
one
was
ever
never like, hey, you could be a state representative.
Yeah. Or there's thousands of those.
Or you could just do something in your town.
City councilor.
Right.
A mayor, a town planner.
Right.
Like, yeah, none of that.
None
that wasn't
of
even a job
at all.
No.
And we didn't get into any of it. Like it was never taught at all. Like you should have a mock campaign where you campaign for something. I mean, there should be so much more that isn't this sort of like Greek style of like classical teaching. Like we're not wearing togas anymore. No. So let's just cool it with the whole needing to learn all of this stuff that isn't that important.
I know.
Unless you want to start specializing in it. And I think that specialization
happens much later.
It does happen much later. I think in high school,
we've already forced kids at a young age just to be specialists.
And then once you yes, but then once you get into high school, you're forced into all these general things.
Yeah.
High school is where I really wanted to get into like a lot of engineering.
Yeah.
And I took 3 engineering courses. That was one more engineering course than I
was allowed to take.
Yeah. It was like through a clerical error that I was able to take more engineering.
Right.
Because I just couldn't get enough of it. But it wouldn't have been given to me unless I had pushed for it, unless we'd really worked at trying to get me into engineering.
Right.
I didn't want to learn biology.
Right.
That wasn't an interest of mine. And I didn't really want to take that much English.
Right.
Sure, a writing class would have been helpful.
Yep.
Been able to communicate my thoughts, but specialization from I think roughly the high school age is important to just be like, what are you motivated to do? And understand obviously that once you get to the college age or a little past that you might actually be like, oh, I tried this and I hate it.
Exactly.
And we don't have a system for that either.
No.
It's just like, oh, well, you got your major in that. Have fun.
And you have to do well in every single class. Mm-hmm. It's counted against you if you're not a good French student or if you're not a good
bad
English
at
student.
gym. You're like, oh, bad at gym.
Oh, not going to go to college.
You're not the valedictorian.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Right. We can't be good at all things, but we've trained this class of people to be like, oh, you have to be good at everything, which means they're not really good at anything.
Right. And we don't teach them, and then, you have the valedictorian getting out into the real world and being like, I don't know how to do my taxes.
Exactly.
I don't know how to schedule a doctor's appointment.
Right.
Mom and dad, help me.
Right.
And sometimes they don't even know.
Exactly.
And it's just like, hello, raise children.
Well, I think that last NPR study that showed that 45% of parents don't talk about climate change with their kids, if the parents aren't even doing it, that means that they've given over to the schools, just teach my kid.
And what are they talking to them about?
Right. I know.
And I know that this is like a parent problem, and
it's a society problem.
It's an entire society problem
Right.
that we just treat our kids like, oh, great, now I have a kid. Now I have to
Right.
deal with this for 18 years,
Right.
and then I can retire.
Well, that's because, especially in America, when you have a child, you're not given any time to even think about what's going on.
Right, and
Like,
we're never trained to be like, here's what having a child is like.
Right.
It's like, here's what having a baby is like.
Right.
Here's a pretend baby.
Right.
Now take care of it.
Right.
And you'd be like, oh, I don't want that. That sucks. But it's never like, here's how you can raise children. Or if you want to have kids, here's what you can do.
Why don't high schoolers spend more time with like kindergarten kids and learning how they develop and working with them like as mentors? No,
Right. Or
that's not done.
anything of, so many, we haven't even talked about half the things.
I know.
Like we could have a whole in-depth, we could have a whole weeks and weeks worth of in-depth talking just about educational things and stuff that I sure gosh darn wish that I learned in school.
Yep.
And another thing is, I would have paid attention more in school if we had been learning
Exactly.
about things that I felt like mattered.
And if you could have picked what you're interested in learning about. And
Right.
also, I mean, why do you watch YouTube videos? Why is YouTube so awesome?
Right,
you
it's
can
just
go
my
down
school.
Yeah, exactly. You can pick who you want to learn from.
It doesn't necessarily have to always be useful when I'm watching YouTube videos.
Right.
I watch a lot of history stuff.
Right.
And a lot of people are like, oh, history majors, blah, blah, blah. I feel like I get something out of it,
Yeah,
learning something,
course.
having something interesting to talk about. There's
Right.
the value in that, I don't think gets
You can
brought
learn
up
from
enough.
anything.
Right. And anyway, I just,
It's so nice to have a Patreon group that is actually, when we put these videos out, because I've talked to other YouTubers,
Yeah.
and when they talk to their audiences, they get a lot of crap. Okay, I'm just being honest. Like they get a lot of like, oh, well, you talked about that for a long time, or you look like this, and it's like, you know what? When we talk to you guys, it's always intelligent discussions afterwards in the comments, and that is amazing.
I have to say, we have like the most different YouTube following than almost any other channel that I've met or talked to. I'm just so glad to have you guys here. You guys are real people. You guys are like interacting with the world. You're not like trolls. You're not just here for like, I don't know. You're not here to just leave crappy comments or to just be funny.
Well, and speaking to our community, I just want to make sure that I make up for some bad behavior for me. For the past month or so, because of the Europe trip, I have not been on Discord much at all. I've been reading a lot of posts, but I haven't been posting a lot. And I've been making an effort to get better at that, because I really love being in that part of that community. It's just that there's so much going on with all my businesses and with the channel and stuff that it is a time thing, but I'm going to be putting more time into that because I get so much out of it.
And like right around the same time that he left for Europe, my job got crazy. So I also was extremely busy. So I wasn't able to handle a lot of the Facebook and Patreon messages. So yeah, sorry about that.
It's kind of thing like it snowballs. Like when we don't keep up, it gets overwhelming because then you see like, oh, we have 100 people to get back to today.
Right.
It's like,
And it's hard to catch back up.
Right.
I think we're basically
doing
all
it,
caught
yeah.
back up. It's nice that we're both here. We can both message each other. We're both on the same time frame.
It just would be nice to have one platform. Instead, we've got email, Facebook, Discord, Patreon, like Twitter, like comes in from all angles.
It's
and
impossible to keep up with everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, I try and handle most of the Facebook and Patreon, and
I do most of the emails, but now we're both trying to do more Discord. So
Yeah.
we're going to try and catch up.
before we forget,
Oh, yeah, we almost see. We're almost
Model 3 tip of the week. Let's
All
do
right.
that.
Hey, everybody, I'm Zach.
And I'm Jesse.
And you're watching the Model 3 Tip of the Week.
All right. So
What do
this
we got?
comes out every Wednesday on top of Tesla Time News on Monday, In Depth on Tuesday.
Yep.
And then you get your Model 3 Tip of the Week.
Because there's so many cool things about the Model 3, and it's hard to keep up.
What do we have this week?
We got lane change detection.
All right, so in this first test, we're going to get on the highway, and Zach is going to put on his blinker to get into my lane. I'm going to be in autopilot, and we're going to see if just the blinker works. So he is not going to be even entering my lane. He's just going to be putting on his blinker when I'm sort of like in his blind spot area, when I'm, you know, when he is just in front of me and off to one lane off to the side. So we're gonna see how that goes. So I mean, I think it noticed as soon as you went over the line, and then it gave me an emergency beep to make sure that I was paying attention. And it didn't react badly at all. I mean, because you cut me off practically, and the car, and I have it set for a distance of 7, and it didn't slam on the brakes or anything. That felt really good. So I mean, it didn't slow down.
Okay, this truck is definitely going to want to do it.
There goes.
You got to do it now. But he didn't put the blinker on, did he?
Yeah, he did.
Oh, he did?
So, I mean...
Okay, I think we got what we need.
Absolutely. That was fantastic. It felt like I was driving. Like, that's exactly what I would do if I were driving.
Thank you so much for watching our Model 3 Tip of the Week. If you've got ideas for episodes, please comment below and let us know, because we want to cover things that you're interested in. Thank you so much for joining us.
Now you know.